Luke chapter 12, verses 35 through 40. In this passage, Jesus is giving some instructions to his disciples about his return. Now, even as we read this text, before we get into it, just got to remember that there's no way the disciples had any idea at the time that Jesus was talking about a return after his death and resurrection and ascension into heaven that would be taking thousands of years later and well beyond their lifetimes. And so normally when we read a passage of scripture, we always want to know what was the meaning to the original audience. And that's an important thing to know. It's also important to recognize in this particular text that the meaning to the original audience was completely lost on the original audience, and that we actually understand this text more clearly because we understand more about Jesus' return now than they certainly did at the time. So with that being in mind, let's jump into the passage. It begins, "Be dressed, ready for service, and keep your lamps burning." Well, immediately you should be noticing those are commands. Be dressed and ready for service. Keep your lamps burning. Quick note here about dressed, ready for service. This is that phrase that if you've been around the church for a long time, you've probably heard once or twice. Girded up loins. Literally, gird up your loins. Be ready for service. We don't talk this way today, mainly because we don't wear robes. But in their time, they wore robes. And because they had robes, if they wanted to get work done, they would often need to tuck those robes into their pants or into their belt. And so they weren't wearing pants. So they would gird up their loins. They would tuck their robe in. So what Jesus is saying is stay that way. Stay ready for service. And then he uses a second analogy. Keep your lamps burning. Keep your lamps burning. And this second image is less obvious, right on the front of it. So let's just put a little yellow under here and ask, what is the point of this analogy to keep your lamps burning? And we'll see the answer in the coming verses. Like servants waiting for their master return from a wedding banquet, so that when he comes and knocks, they can immediately open the door for him. And this second portion, keep your lamps burning, relates to all of this that comes that comes in verse 36. So servants are the ones in mind here, and we should just immediately appreciate that that is us. We are like servants. That's an important word here, right? That word like brings us back to this keep your lamps burning. Okay, so like servants waiting for their master to return from a wedding banquet. These wedding banquets often took place at night. And so when the master was coming home, it was dark. And mind you, there are no streetlights, there are no taxi cabs. This guy is walking through the night, through the town, looking for his home. So if there's no lamps burning, he's not going to be able to find his house, right? And additionally, right, that guides that guy home. But look at this. He actually gives us the specific, right? The so that what will happen? So that when he comes and knocks, like this is coming, right? It's particularly important that we pay attention to the word when. This is going to happen. He is going to return. And he comes and knocks. They want to be ready to immediately open the door for him. Another key word. Ready to immediately open the door for their master. And thus they have to keep their lamps burning. Thus they have to stay ready with girded up loins. Don't let your robe down. Don't let your lamp go out. Stay ready for his return. So there's the initial instruction, right? This is the initial command for readiness. All right. Let's look at the next verse. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them watching when he comes. Right? So that's just, Jesus just gives this as a statement. Obviously, this first part is just, this is what a good servant does. Good servant does, right? But beyond that, there's an additional reward here. So I'm just going to put it in green so that we recognize this as a new section. Reward it will be good for those servants whose master finds them watching when he comes. He's going to be pleased when he comes home in the middle of the night that his servants stayed awake. Truly I tell you, he will dress himself to serve, will have them recline at the table, and will come wait on them. Whoa! This is an amazing bit of goodness. Now, we're going to have to just take this from the perspective of someone in their time. This idea that the master is going to come and dress himself to serve. Who's getting ready? Now the master's getting himself ready. He will have them recline at the table. That's what he's supposed to do. Them here is the servants listed above, right? They will recline at the table, and he will come and wait on them. So now the master is so pleased with the way that his servants are behaving that he reverses roles and serves them. And so this is the reward, right? This is the reward and the humility of the master. And, we may be not thinking of heaven this way, but perhaps we should. Heaven as a place where God delights to serve us. And by the way, if God delights to serve us, why do we have such a problem serving others, right? It's not too lowly a job for God. Who do we think we are if we are unwilling to serve, right? All right. He continues, it will be good for those servants whose masters finds them ready, even if he comes in the middle of the night or toward the day break. Oh, sorry, I should have extended this a little further right out to there. Let's see if we can erase that and bring that out just a little further. Okay. It will be good for those servants, right? So we've got this twice repeated phrase, it will be good, it will be good. I'm just circle that in blue so we're paying attention. This is important. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them, and this is another repeated phrase, right? It's not by accident, whose master finds them. Ready, even if he comes in the middle of the night or toward the daybreak. If you have a different translation of the Bible, it says third watch. Right now, we don't immediately know what third watch means. The Jews divided their night into their day into 3 parts. The Romans had 4 parts. So if it is the Jewish 3-part, it is toward daybreak. But if it's the Roman 4-part, then it's the middle of the night. The third watch is right there. So that's why they say that. The NIV translators are like, we know you don't know what time that is. So we'll just say, even if it's the middle of the night, even if it's 6 a.m., right before the sun comes back up, the servants who are still ready, it will be good for them. All right, so Jesus is even hinting, it may take longer than you expect. And then he says this, but, right? And then now all Jesus does is, he brings in the second half of this. But understand this, right? What are we to understand, right? So this is another command. Understand this. If the owner of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, and we could supply the then, right? So we have an if-then construction. If he knew what hour of the night the thief was coming, he would have not let his house be broken into. You also must be ready. There's the command again. Be ready. Because, so we get the reason why we must be ready, the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. So I skipped over this in the beginning of this last section. Let me pull this up real fast. But if we're looking at the thief, this is a bit of a question. Like, who is the thief? Why did this character be suddenly brought up? And the confusing part is actually that the thief is the Son of Man. That's the person who is coming at an hour when you don't expect them, right? Coming at an hour when they are unexpected. And this is just like a helpful lesson in don't push the analogy, right? Don't push analogies. Being a thief and being like a thief are very different things. And what is the point of this? Well, let's go back to this, right? Because the command, once again, is that we must be ready. So his comparison here is, understand this: if the owner house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. In other words, if someone told you, hey, in the middle of the night, a thief is going to break into your house, you would not go to sleep. You would stand on watch, you would be ready, and your house would not be broken into, right? And so we are being told that Jesus is coming at an hour we will not expect. If we would prepare for a thief, right, then the idea is, how much more should we prepare for the return of Christ, right? So this final portion is a how much more argument, which is important for us to appreciate. So just a wonderful passage on being ready for the Lord's return. There is good reason, right? We want to have that reward when he comes back. But there's also, we want to be good servants and we want to be faithful to our master. Now, in the verses that follow this, and you can just do this for your own study, in the verses that follow after Luke 40, you're going to see a lot of talk about punishment for the unfaithful servant who does not wait. So notice as well here that we have both good reasons to wait and and bad consequences to avoid, and that Jesus provides both of those in this text. And again, what's the point for us? To be ready for the Lord's return. May he return finding us doing exactly what we should be doing.